On the Wado Radio Show.
Yes, it's DJ Wado. It's the Wado Radio Show. It's more than music. It's ministry, man. Listen, a couple of months ago, we had my good friend Josh from Sphere Hip Hop on, and we talked a lot about Christian rap history and his involvement with the genre for so long. And the feedback you guys gave us from that was amazing. And so I wanted to continue doing more interviews like that. And one of the people that I think it made the most sense to have on, because he has a very unique perspective, particularly with his involvement in the West Coast and syntax over the years and the record label and the distribution and all of that stuff, is Tim Trudeau. And he's on the line with us right now, man. What's up, my brother?
Hey, how's it going?
Man, I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
I am doing good. I'm just trying to survive the harsh weather of San Diego, California.
Oh, come on, man. The harsh weather of San Diego, California? Come on, man. You ain't have to put that energy out there for everybody else to be jealous of where you living, bruh.
But it's May, and I had to put on a sweatshirt. That's weird.
Oh, come on, Tim. Come on, man. Come on, bruh. Come on, man. Y'all got probably the best weather in the country out there, man. That's good, though,
That's
man.
True.
That's good, bro. Hey, but let me ask you this. I would like to start here. And how did you get involved in Christian music and Christian hip hop in particular, bro?
Well, so let's see. So I grew up in Southern California,
Yep.
and in the '80s, and we, hip hop was making its way over here through swap meets. I don't know. I think they're called flea markets everywhere else.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Yep.
So we had one that we would go to, and we'd show up, and they'd have these bootleg cassettes that were coming from the East Coast, and we were so excited to get a hold of them. And so basically, that was kind of the introduction to hip hop specifically.
Yep.
And my brother was 4 years older than me, so he was always better at everything. Just from being older. So he was breakdancing, and he was actually really good at it, and
Wow.
I wasn't. So we always had cardboard in the backyard or in the garage, and we were trying our best. And so that was kind of the introduction to hip hop. Now, we were also growing up in the church at the same time, but obviously the church had nothing at all like this, and we were really enjoying ourselves. And so I think the first thing that happened was probably, it would have been like 1985 or something, maybe even earlier, I'm trying to think of how, basically, we went to this one church, and they knew that my brother was breakdancing and stuff, and so on one of the youth nights, they let him come up and do that, and so he did that, and that was breakdancing in a church, and it was kind of crazy, and people were, I remember all the way back then, people were having trouble with that, that's the devil's music or the street stuff, and so that was kind of, I think that was the beginning of like, oh, wait a second, maybe we can mix these two together, church and hip hop, and so that's the beginning, and it was a long, tough road for a long time.
Yeah. I didn't anticipate that being the story. Like, I always feel like, particularly for a lot of us that live on the East Coast, it was almost like, I almost feel like the vibe that I get from a lot of people was like, there was all these separate movements going on around the country. So you had stuff in Texas, obviously stuff that was on the East Coast, but a whole lot of stuff that was going on the West Coast. And it really wasn't until the internet kind of started bringing people together. I mean, I think there was some stuff like Crewvention and Flavor Fest even that kind of helped bring some people together, man. But like, how aware were you of stuff going on outside of California? And like, when did you really start to realize, like, man, there's a lot of other people that's doing what we're doing out here as well?
Yeah, so definitely the internet played the biggest role in that. I was I think I was 12 years old when I built my first computer from parts or from scratch.
Sheesh.
And so
Can I ask
I
you
did
what?
that.
Can I ask you what year that was, if you don't mind?
So that would have been sixth grade. So let's see, I graduated in '96. So probably 1990.
90. Wow.
I think that sounds right. But yeah. So basically, I did that, and then my parents, they really had no idea what I was doing. Like the kids today with their tablets and stuff, I feel like parents have a little more. I mean, I still feel like sometimes parents are insane, but I think parents have a little more indication of what's going on with their children and their digital habits. But my parents had no idea. They didn't know what the internet was or any of that stuff. And so in the night, I was getting on bulletin boards is what we were calling them before it was message boards and before it was actually dialing up to the internet. So we would send echo mail before we would send email. So I was already doing all that stuff. So anything that I was interested in, I was also trying to incorporate what I was doing with computers. So I'd say fast forward to about 94, 95, the internet is still kind of like IP addresses. So you're typing in like 206.198.56.32, and then you're getting over to, some guy. And so that's how I met, like real early on. I think the first people I met was Brother E from Bronx.
Oh yeah, yeah. Pastor now.
Yeah, exactly. But he had a job at Columbia University, so he was on the internet early during work, and so him and I would exchange messages all throughout the day. So I felt like the West Coast and the East Coast were shrinking fast because of the internet, but it was really still just a handful of people. So there was him, there was Manchild from Marsville, but he was part of another group at the time. And actually Syntax the Terrific was on there as well. And he was part of a group with Manchild at the time. I can't remember their names at that time, but they were in a group called The Pride. And so them, and then DJ All-Star from Indiana, but I think he was in Indiana, but then he moved to Washington, and I don't know when that happened. And he actually, he was the one that was running this particular forum, which is seriously only a handful of people. Flynn from LA Symphony was on it, and then myself and my brother. And that was really it. And that was called Beats.com. And so the email address was heads@beats.com. And so if you emailed that, then all those people I just mentioned would get something. So we had people in LA, the Midwest, New York, all on there, down south, Atlanta. Like, we're all on there, and we're basically saying, this is what we're working on. So, like, before there was any LA Symphony, Flynn would be telling us what he's working on, what he's got going on. We'd be telling him what we're trying to do down in San Diego. I mean, I remember the day I got my first MPC 3000, to make beats on. And so I, of course, tell all those guys on there, and, hey, this is where we're at. There's no Syntax yet. And so, I mean, we're like teenagers, some early 20s, and we're all on there, like, hanging out all day, basically just keeping each other up to date. And
wow. And
then it just continued to go from there. I started something similar, but I opened it up to the public, and it was called True Hip Hop, TRU Hip Hop, and that thing got to like 10,000 within a year or two. I mean, it was fast. So that was probably closer to like the later 90s, like 97, 98, to where we got 10,000 people around the U.S., but also even around the world, because somewhere in there we met this guy named Busy R from the Netherlands, who was all into Christian hip-hop, and he even started his own Christian hip-hop website, way before Hip-Hop Zone, Rapzilla, any of that stuff. But yeah, godshouse.com was like the East Coast one. And so a lot of people met through that as well, because they had a chat room where people would try to battle each other, which was hilarious. But yeah, message board, and then they hosted like individual artist pages, anyone from Mark J to, I think Future Shock had a page on there from the Tunnel Rat. So, it's been, the internet blew everything up. Like, it fast-tracked all the networking and and collaboration. I mean, Seth Static was on way before he joined the Tunnel Rats, way before any of that stuff, interacting with people. So Crewvention was awesome, but that was kind of like the first time that a lot of these people that were talking on the internet were able to finally connect in person.
Man. Yeah, that had to be crazy, bro. At what point did you decide to start Syntax Records? Or what is, cause that came before the distribution, right?
Yeah. We give it a birth date of 1997. So we're at 20 years now for that.
Sheesh.
But yeah, basically 97 was when I don't know if we actually called it Syntax or not, but that's when I started the production.
So you guys in
stuff.
Cross Movement basically started around the same time, basically.
Actually, through the internet, I met Matthew Abram, who was running Cross Movement Records. He sent me a cassette of like 6 or 7 songs, and Cypher Time was one of them. And so we're already interacting. He's telling me, hey, I got this group, Cross Movement. We're gonna, put them out and blah blah blah. So he sends me that cassette, wants my opinion, and then I write like a review about it for, I don't know, God's House or Lighthouse or who knows, because I was writing reviews for websites too. So did a little thing about that, and then they took off, sold 100,000 on Diamante. But CMN was the distributor before Diamante, and that was Matthew Abrams' company.
Wow. So you guys started in 97.
Yeah. So I think Syntax, the name, we may have started calling it Syntax in 98, but I mean, 97 we started it and put out some stuff. 98 we filmed our first professional music video and got it serviced to Christian video channels and stuff. And so 98 is when you start seeing the logo, like at least on a national level. But 97 is when we were actually, we were already doing it before that, but 97 is when we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And we actually started organizing and getting real serious about it.
Wow. What made you do it?
That's a great question. So first and foremost, I was a Christian hip hop fan, like going back to the breakdancing and the pitch and all that.
Yeah.
I was a fan of the idea. First, we didn't even know that there was such a thing, but then we had a Bible bookstore near our house that was actually pretty hot. Like there was a guy that worked in the music section, and he's actually the guy that introduced me to Tone, like way back before Tone was on any major labels or any of that kind of stuff. But that's because Tone lived in the same community and we went to the same Bible bookstore. So this guy was kind of networking us as well to each other. And so his name was Anti-Raisin Man, and I haven't been able to find him for like 20 years. So if anyone knows where he's at, let me know. He wears trench coats and he has like red hair. So I'm looking for you, bro. So anyways, yeah, we would go there. I would spend all my lunch money on anything. I didn't care if it was whack or not. I just bought every single thing that was calling itself Christian hip hop.
Wow.
At the time, because my thought was, if we buy this stuff, even if it's whack, we can help grow something here. We can help get it going. And so that was the initial thought. But then fast forward, I noticed that the kind of hip hop that I liked personally wasn't really in the stores. They had, I don't even know, I kind of would call it preacher rap, but basically you had these guys that look like they should be preaching on TBN, but then they were rapping.
Wow.
And so
you don't remember who it was? Who was it?
Oh, there was a lot. I don't want to, be disrespectful. So, but yeah, there was a lot of people.
Okay,
we were
so I
buying
think
the records.
So I think I might know who this is. Okay.
So we had the preacher rap, and then Gospel Gangsters came around.
Yep.
Gosh, I think that first one was 94. so you had like gangster rap, like people who said they used to be killing people and dealing drugs and now they're saved, and then you had people who had never done anything like that and always been a preacher, and then that was pretty much it. I mean, that was your offering. And so for us, we were like, well, we're not gangsters. We're also not like only ever been inside of church. We actually do understand hip hop, and we are Christian. So why isn't there like some kind of a spot or something for that? So for us, you know, by the time we actually did Syntax, there was already other people doing it, but we were feeling because hip hop is dynamic, man. There's a lot of different styles, and nowadays people might not know that because there's one style, but back in the day there was 31 flavors, and it could be regional, it could be topically. Like hip hop had so many different flavors, and so we were just like wanting to offer a flavor or two that was Christian that was non-existent. So that was a long way to answer your question. I apologize about that.
No, it was. I mean, look, bro. I feel like a lot of this information is new information for most people. So, you know, the more you share, the better, man. How did Syntax start growing, and what was some of your first artists for people that may not know the early history? Like I kind of like honestly, bro. Like I kind of got hip to you guys around the time that Braille was signed, and a little bit before that. You know what I mean? Like when he put the album out on Syntax.
The first time or the second time? Because we worked with Braille real early, and then we worked with him again later for the IV.
No, second time. Definitely IV.
Okay, cool. So 2007 or so, that makes sense. Well, first of all, we were doing a lot of firsts, and I think that helped us to solidify a position. One of those things we were doing was making MTV quality music videos early, like super fast. 98, we did at least 2 film, 30 millimeter, high quality, like genuine video shoots. So we were, the guy that did our video shoots is the same guy that did Exhibit, DVD, Eminem, DVDs, Fortress Entertainment.
Wow.
So they worked with all the big rappers, and they were in San Diego. And so basically we were able to get like some really good quality videos, but for really cheap, because the guys had a heart and for San Diego, and I don't know if they were Christians or not, but they, I think, at least appreciated what we were doing or what we were bringing to the table, because they were used to filthy stuff. And so again, did some videos, had some good airplay as well. There was like early on, we were getting played on a lot of alternative or rhythmic, people that were playing more like electronic music or rock, like the sort of like the night or weekend shows on Christian stations started playing our stuff a lot. And I think that part of it was because they weren't scared of us, because we weren't hoodlums, so they didn't think, whatever people think about that, like maybe the gospel gangsters, no matter what they were saying, even if every single thing they were saying was like on point, I think Christian radio was still scared of them. And so for a lot of the stuff that we were doing, we were able to, there wasn't really any rap shows. I mean, there might have been like 5 around the country at most, but still a lot of the rock stations or hardcore, at the time, to them, hip hop was a form of hardcore as well. So they were like, it's alternative, it's different. And so they would play that. So we were able to get video play and airplay pretty significantly and pretty fast. And actually, the first group that we put out was a group that I was actually a part of, Sackcloth Fashion. And that group ended up, the first deal we did was a pass-through with Rescue Records. Rescue Records was POD, Tone, Dogwood, Unity Clan, and all this other stuff, Frosty. There was a lot of stuff on there. And the record that we put out, which was just a pass-through of their label, ended up being the biggest seller that label ever had through Diamante. And so Diamante came to us directly and offered us a deal as a label for distribution. because they knew we were a pass through and they knew we were our own label, but we didn't have our own distribution yet. So that record went on and sold like 40,000, which at the time was, well, actually today that's a bajillion, but
right.
But at that time, it was, for independent, that was like pretty good. You know, so basically we got offered a deal, and then I think we started the 2000s with distribution through Diamante, or maybe like started late '99. But yeah, that record came out in '99, and it sold super crazy. And I would attribute most of that, the success of that record, because, you know, we're all high school, post high school. We're not touring the country yet, not doing shows, which is what it takes. But the internet, man. So like originally, we had been hyping up that stuff and what we were working on for a good couple of years or more on the internet. So when it finally came out, people knew it was in the store. And for Christian hip hop, that was a new thing, because you didn't know people dropped records, or that you didn't know there was a new label, a new artist. You would just show up at the bookstore and you'd go, hey, what the heck is this? And then you pick it up and try it out. But we were actually offering samples of songs and video clips. You know, you had to have like super dial-up, and then you'd have to wait for it to load and stuff. But even back then, nobody was able to really preview records, or even know that there was a street date and it was coming. So that we were able to take control of the internet like pretty early, and I think it made a huge difference.
Wow, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy to kind of get that groundswell. Yeah. So when did you realize that touring was such a big key to this?
Well, you know, more and more labels were coming on the scene. More and more artists were coming. It was getting a little bit easier to do. And so we, our group would tour the country. And one of the things that we learned quickly, too, was that no one was touring. So just the first person that was willing to tour could get, you know, because here's the thing, Christian hip-hop was not welcome in the church for the longest time. I mean, you'd have a youth pastor who'd take a chance on it, but then you'd have the senior pastor of that church come in and be like, what is this? And unplug speakers and tell you to get off the stage. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then it was getting more and more accepted. But
what do you think led to it getting accepted from your vantage point?
Honestly, I just think time. I think time was, because you have to think like in the 90s, all that people knew of hip hop was, you know, Blank the Police, and right, and all, which isn't even accurate. But that's just what was going on in the news, right? You have Al Gore and Chipper Gore, who are working on, you know, the parental advisory warning label, because they're saying, hey, parents of the United States, this rap music is terrible, so we're going to make a sticker, we're going to put it on there, and we're going to help you guys be better parents. And, you know, so you had all that crap going on, and it's just, that's all people knew. So basically, just like today, I mean, most people only get their information from, I don't know, CNN or whatever they do, and that's just not, it's usually inaccurate. It's usually hyped towards the tip of the iceberg. And so I think rap was just suffering the same thing. Those who were growing up in it were aware of all the different flavors and the stuff that wasn't maybe controversial, maybe stuff that was actually positive, you know, not Christian, but was already positive, and or just good social commentary. So I think part of it was just people had to become more and more educated. And now, you know, who's in charge of who are the pastors in 2017, or who are the pastors in the 2000s? They're people that grew up around hip hop, so they were way less scared. But when we were kids, the people who were in charge were scared of hip hop. So as those leadership positions have been replaced, I think, you know, you just have a lot of people that just flat out aren't scared of hip hop.
Yeah. So what got you guys out on the road, and who were the first artists you started having tour?
Well, I mean, obviously the goal was always to do shows around town whenever you can, but like for us, I went and bought a 15-passenger church youth group van from this Baptist church.
You got one of them
town.
Dodge joints. One of them Dodge joints, huh?
Yeah, it was a Dodge 1977, and it was huge and noisy, and it was hot in the summer and freezing in the winter.
Man.
There was no heater and there was no air conditioner.
Wow.
But we would load up our group and maybe one or two other openers or something, and we'd get out there and we just pound the pavement. And what was crazy to me was, San Diego is a weird city because there's so much to do that Christian artists who come here, they can't draw a crowd. I mean, the Newsboys couldn't draw a crowd in San Diego.
Wow.
But like we'd go to Phoenix, Arizona, 6 hours away, and we'd get 4,000 people that would show up, and it wasn't necessarily because there were 4,000 fans of the group that was there. We'd have some of that, of course, but we'd have 4,000 Christian kids who were just excited to get out of the house, go somewhere, and like see something that sounded exciting and was Christian or whatever. And so, we would go to Cincinnati, Ohio, and we'd have like hundreds of people show up, and we would just be like, who are all these people and such. And so I think, fast forward, the reason Rapzilla has been so successful is because it's basically been able to capture all those kids that would show up at those shows in one spot and basically continue to feed them information.
Yeah, that's crazy, bro. That's insane. So that was okay. So I'm gonna ask you about a few artists that you guys have worked with on the label side, and then I want to get into Syntax Creative and the distribution side and all of that. So, okay. Tone, and I mean, for people that have been following me since the beginning, like an interview that I did with him shortly after The Naked Truth, I was like the first interview he did. Honestly, that's what got a lot of people interested in his radio show. So I've always been, and I wasn't even like the biggest Tone fan. Like I knew who he was, but I didn't even know all his back history then. So even to this day, I'm always still interested in, just how his career is going, because he's been such a big part of mine. How did you guys link with him? I know you mentioned when you like kind of initially met him, but just even on the business side.
Yeah. So I mean, first and foremost, his church, his parents' church, Truth Apostolic, was in Spring Valley, California. Yep. Which is right next door to all the cities so La Mesa was the Bible bookstore I'm talking about, and La Mesa and Spring Valley border each other, and then Hamul was where I was at in my teens, and Hamul and Spring Valley border each other. So all these little cities in San Diego County were all kind of linked up, and so there was a lot of people, again, POD, all these people that were kind of doing it. So Tone was obviously more in gospel or in R&B.
Sure.
And we were more in hip hop, and POD was more in the rock side, but we were all kind of trying to do the same thing. So I think that a lot of that having that similar vision, or even common enemy thing, it helps people kind of link up whether they're the same style or not. So he was like real early, like just clearly like way far more talented than most artists. But
like you could see that off rip. Like before he was signed anything, you could just see like this dude got it.
Yeah, like he was making songs in his bedroom on the ASR, and it was sounding like he had somehow had like this massive budget, and I mean the things he was able to do with the gear that he had, and then take all the gear away. Like his voice alone is insane. Like he may be better than Michael Jackson and Prince put together. A lot of people, might have trouble with that just because once something reaches that critical mass, it's kind of hard to compare it. But honestly, I just think he's never had the platform to do any of that. But yeah, he was so he was around and he was killing it, and just a lot of fun, man. Like we were able to work together a lot. I mean, I produced a song on his Jive album, O2. Yeah. So we recorded that at my studio in Lemon Grove, was where that studio was at.
That's the album with Got It Not Forgot, right?
Where what?
Was that O2? Didn't he? That song God Had Not Forgot?
Yeah, I think that's correct. The song I did was Dancing in the Sun. That's the one I produced.
Okay.
So, and actually that album was Grammy nominated, so that was the first time I was able to claim Grammy nominated as a producer, so that was fresh. So yeah, he was cool like that in that even though he was taking off, he's on Jive, he's blowing up, he still allowed me to produce a song, and I was the first person that ever produced a song for him, because he had always produced his own stuff, but He was trying to help San Diego out, and I always respect that. Like, he's just that kind of a guy. So yeah, I mean, we were just working together. He guest appeared on several of our records. He actually had artists that he was developing, and he would put out on our label while he was on a major and doing that. So that we were just always collaborating throughout the 2000s, the late 90s and the 2000s for a long time. And actually, you mentioned Naked Truth, and that came out when he was signed to Syntax Records, and actually that song came out 3 weeks before we dropped a record with him, and that record, suffice to say, was returned by every Christian bookstore.
I bet.
So even though the record itself was a fantastic record, once the Naked Truth hit the internet, everyone was like, "Oh, we're done with this guy." And
bro, I did not know I don't think I realized he was signed to y'all at that time, because he had already done Make Me Over and all of that, and so I thought he was still kind of in that major space.
So what he did was he did Jive for a couple of records or so. I don't remember how many. And then he came to us because he didn't like being on a major. He likes being in control of his what he does and all that, because he has the abilities and the talent. And so he came over to us. But in the end, that was probably not a good deal for either of us, because he was going through too much stuff. And like I said, released that song, and that destroyed all the great things we were doing together. And we lost a lot of money on that. And that's the record label business. Is you take a chance on something.
So let me ask you this, bro. I've always wanted to ask somebody this, not knowing that you were the right person to ask this. If he never makes that record, now obviously he went through what he went through, like, you know what I mean? So that's going to impact you some kind of way. But if he never makes that record, Naked Truth, and everything that went with that, you know, posting on the MySpace, taking it down, obviously he's in the interview with me cursing, like, if that never happens, how is his career trajectory different, in your opinion?
Well, I think that was part of the problem. I don't think he was comfortable with the trajectory that he was on, which was, you know, after the record that I was a part of, the next one was Out the Box, and that obviously...
Yep, 3 million records sold.
So that one, I mean, he had Sheila E., he had Kirk Franklin, he had, you know, Yolanda Adams, all these people showing up. And I was there. Our group opened that show where he recorded Out the Box live, Taco Fashion. So, again, all those years later, he still, you know, hooks up the homies, brings them in, and so that was fresh. But yeah, he was on a trajectory of becoming the next gospel sensation, and I don't think he was comfortable with that, because I think he's so much more than gospel.
Sure.
And again, when I say that, I mean gospel as the genre.
Yep.
Because I think that genre is so limiting to the artist.
Yeah.
Like, you think Christian hip hop is strict? Man, like, gospel is hard on their artists. Now, granted, he definitely did and said some things that are unsavory and definitely not God honoring. But like, in general, like, the gospel scene, I mean, they're looking at, you know, what kind of suit you have and the shoes, and if your hair is a certain way, and like, oh my gosh, they're so hard on their artists. So Christian hip hop can never act like it's got it hard when you compare it to gospel.
Yeah, yeah. So where were you guys looking to take him? And y'all's deal, like where was that? Where was that headed?
Well, well, the stuff that we were doing with him was a little more R&B. It wasn't like not Christian. It just was musically more in that vein. And I think that his label was pushing him to make the more contemporary styles of gospel or traditional gospel. And because if he would have done that, it would be like, for most people that are in the music business, it's a no-brainer. It's like, look, if you want to be successful, you do this, this, and this, and you already have the talent. So if you just do these three things, you're going to be, a household name for the rest of eternity. So just follow these steps, and you're going to have income for life. Yeah. And I think that he wasn't comfortable with that. But again, he'll have to be the one to say what he really thinks on all that stuff. I'm just guessing from the outside. I mean, we were obviously close to the situation, but ultimately, I think,
I feel you.
I can't really say what's going on in his head. So that was him. And I think did you mention someone else that I was supposed to talk about?
Well, no, I haven't mentioned him yet, but my other one was Pigeon John.
Yeah. That was a unique one, because he was doing really well as a solo artist, but he was also, LA Symphony was doing really well too.
Yep.
And so for his first solo project, he approached us, which again, flattering, always flattering anytime anyone wants to work with you. And we were like, absolutely, this is great because we have this brand new label and brand new distribution, and we need some releases. So I think we were a little more, as a new label, we were a little more open to ideas for slotting records. And I think as we went along, we thought harder about long-term and that kind of thing, and working with people that are going to, ride or die for you versus a quick buck on this record or that record.
Yeah.
And so Pigeon John, super nice guy, very talented, but he, and I think that he was probably forthright about this back then. Even, I just can't remember, but he was really just trying to put that record there temporarily and then generate enough interest to possibly go get his own direct deal, to get signed to somebody that had a lot more money and resources.
Sure.
But kind of use us to get his CD in the books on the shelf at the stores and to kind of get that national platform, and so on. And then we were using him because he was providing a fantastic record and he had a name that was bubbling, and we needed some releases because I was recording and producing every single release on our record, and I was dying on the vine because, I think we were required to put out at least 6 records in a year, which might not sound like a lot until you realize that one person is making all the songs, recording them, mixing them, doing the graphics, doing the photo shoots,
right,
making videos. Like, I was doing all of it, and I was dying. So the idea of people bringing completed records to us started to feel or sound pretty dang good to me.
I bet, man. I bet. What about Propaganda, bro? Well, maybe Braille and Propaganda.
Yeah. So, Propaganda, I think we met fairly early on too. Obviously good friends with Josh, who you interviewed, a while back, like you said. Real good friends with him, and he was over at Uprock, and he was working with the Sonorats and stuff, so we're aware of him there. And then met him, and we're vibing well for years. He would come down and do shows at Man of War was one of our artists, and Man of War was also a youth pastor and he had a nice little youth club or whatever you want to call it. And so he would bring some of these guys out, and so Propaganda came down a couple of times. So we were always kind of working together a little bit, but I think it was closer to 2007 or 8 when we started talking a little more serious. I can't remember when his record came out on Cesar's label. Cesar from Soul Seekers, who I don't remember the name of his label, but that was the record that came out on. It was kind of an adventure with End of Earth Records, which was DJ Traykill from Future Shock.
Yeah.
Anyways, after that, we started talking and we were kind of working together. We never recorded music, but we had already started, putting them on festivals. So one of them was, like Revolution was in Los Angeles. It was a pretty big festival, and then took them to Russia in 2009. And so we were getting all ready to really go big with him, and even on Thomas as well. And so that was 2009, and then around somewhere in the summer of 2009, we took a break as a label because our distribution company was growing like out of control rapidly. And I also was going through some stuff on the personal side. And so I took a break, and I basically told him and Thomas and Burrell, as well as the rest of our artists, the same thing pretty much was, look, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to be able to do much during this time. So your options are hang tight, and we'll get back to work as soon as I'm ready again, or I can help you guys kind of launch your own thing. And so that's what Humble Beast is. Before that, it was, Burrell was launching his own thing, Talking Texture, and then Thomas and Propaganda were going to do Humble Beast, and then they were all in Portland, so it was like, why don't you guys just work together and do it all in one big thing? And so Humble Beast became that. So I helped a lot in the beginning with them, very early on, 2009, 2010, and so on. And then, of course, we ended up being their distributor for quite some time. We still distribute a lot of their releases as well, just stuff from the past. So yeah, that was the move there. So we never got to work with Propaganda on a musical level. So a little bummed about that, but so glad to see how he's grown and taken off. I mean, it's really exciting.
And that will conclude part 1 of our interview with Tim Trudeau of Syntax Creative. Listen, part 2, lit. We'll talk about his whole foray into distribution, how he was able to kind of break into a world that not many people can break into, plus a very, very, very lively conversation around streaming. That's part 2. Don't miss it.
On the Way Radio Show. On the Way Radio. On the Way Radio Show. Where it's much more than music, it's ministry.